Hey everybody, we are here wanting to talk about a little bit of a different view. What? Hey guys, so we are talking in this video about an interesting question. In 10 years, when we look back at this, what will we have said about our time during COVID-19? And at the front end of it, it seems like, well, this is kind of a stupid question. Why are we talking about this? But when you think of like, okay, we can look at our answer and say, yeah, I was frustrated that I couldn't leave my house and hang out with friends. And I was just kind of mad the whole time. And I didn't really talk to people. And it was miserable. And I didn't grow from it. I didn't learn. And then youth group was done. That's one way to look at it. But if we want to get to a point where we can say, like, I saw God moving in really cool ways. I pushed myself in some ways. And I grew spiritually, physically, emotionally, mentally, and powered through. And so COVID-19 was a stressful time. But I got to see God work in it and through it and in me and through me. So we're asking that question from the back end, wanting to say, hey, I want to get to this point. And what do we need to do to really get there, to have that mindset so that we can take advantage of this time and make the best of it?
Yeah.
So you guys have any thoughts of how we can get to that point so we can look back someday and say, I really got to see God working in this?
I think a lot about my own life. I mean, I'm a little older than you guys by a couple of years, and, you know, my kids are a little older than your kids. So, I mean, you could argue that I'm at the next step of life from you guys, not the next phase or anything like that, but just a couple of years ahead. And so I'm 31 right now, and I think about when I was 21. And obviously, you know, coronavirus wasn't a thing back then, but I think about when I was 21. I was in college, or I had just finished college, and I was just starting out in the workforce. And I think about all the things that I did then, all the goals and aspirations I had for my life then, and what's come true now. And a lot of the things I feel like I really should have been doing and could have been doing. You know, I think a lot about even not even just in 10 years, you know, like what's today, the March 19th? So you think about if you would have started something on January 1st, like a New Year's resolution, you'd be 3 months into that already. And it's been a weird 3 months, but it's been 3 months. You know, I think about if I would have started eating healthy or working out or whatever, what would I look like or how would I feel in just 3 months? And so when you expand that out 10 years, you know, if you would have told 21-year-old Alex that I would be married with 3 kids, living in Columbus, working at a church and doing all the things I'm doing, I don't think I would have been able to fathom it in the way that we can. And so I think this question is extremely good to be reflective and have that forward-thinking process, but also centering yourself in the moment now and not just being like, oh, you know, if you're 16 years old, you'll be 26. If you're 17, you'll be 27. If you're 18, 28. So on and so forth. And so you can't think, oh, I'm 18 years old now, my senior year is over, it's ruined, I'm not going to be able to finish out my spring sport or whatever, but when I get to college in the fall, I'm going to try harder. That doesn't work like that. You have to take steps along the way to become excellent where you are. I think a lot about this question in relation to God's will. You know, what is God's will for my life 10 years from now? What's God's will for my life 5 years from now? Where am I going to be living? What am I going to be doing? And all that stuff. But the reality is the will of God is not about 10 years from now or 10 minutes from now. It's about what are you doing right now to center yourself in your relationship with Jesus Christ. And I think when you ask this question in relation to coronavirus and what you can do right now, to Dylan's point, don't waste your time. You know, what can you do right now? And so, you know, I think a lot about this, you know, 10 years from now, my kids are going to be in school. I'm going to have 3 kids all in school. My wife is going to be working. I'm still going to be working. Life is going to look a lot different. We're never going to get this time back with our kids. My wife said to me, she texted me the other day, and she goes, I'm really thankful for this time because never again in our lives will we be home for an extended period of time where we're both able to work from home and our kids are at home, not in school, not at daycare, and spend this amount of time with our kids. And it's true, we're never going to have that opportunity again. And so I think 10 years from now, my hope is that I learn skills to become a better husband and a better father and grow in those areas so that I can continue to love my kids well, pray for my kids well, love my wife well, know her well, serve her well 10 years from now. And I think for our relationships with Jesus, we all have you guys for 4 years or 6 years or 7 years or 3 years or whatever. And our thought process is always, what are we doing now during these 4 years of high school or a couple years, including middle school, whatever, to set you guys up for ways that you can be Christians when you're 25 and 35 and 45 and 55. And so I think this question is really good. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I think about, I'm always thinking like sports kind of minded, but you look at like the off season, of when things aren't really going on, when you don't have things you have to do necessarily, things are calm. And you've seen it over and over again, throughout the years. Some people do nothing, they get themselves in trouble, do things they know they shouldn't be doing, right? And then you have the people who take that time to really hone in on certain parts of who they are, their game, whatever they are. And I think it's the same way where, take like Giannis Antetokounmpo, however you say his name, the dude was like skinny string bean, like nobody knew who he was when he was drafted. And each offseason, he came back and he was like just a tremendous, he's literally, like he won MVP last year, right? And dude's incredible. And that's a perfect example of what that looks like. And that could be physical, it could be working out in this time. It could be, accomplishing some sort of goal in our life that's happening. But I think spiritually, as well, how is God forming us, in this time? Yeah. Like, that's so big, it's unique for you guys to be home, you and your wife, and have kids there. But it's unique in every single person's life because odds are we're never going to go through something like this again, guys. Like, the last time something like this happened was Spanish flu.
To this scale,
right.
You know what I mean?
As far as like a pandemic style, event, because the last one was 1912, right? So there aren't a whole lot of people who, are probably alive still from that. I mean, it was almost 100 years ago. And, so take this moment, how's it going to be different? What's going to change, in this season? I think that's the biggest thing. Is I saw a meme the other day on Instagram, and it was like, us as grandparents telling our grandchildren about the coronavirus, and they're like, so what did you like? Tell me about the coronavirus, and like, what did you do, Grandpa? And the dude was like, me and my friends just sent gifts and memes to each other, and laughed. And I'm like, oh man, like that's stupid, obviously, but to a certain degree, it's like, what are we gonna like? That's what spurred this whole question of like, what are we gonna look back on this time in our life and say like, oh yeah, that was crazy. Like, or are we going to have something to show for it? And that's not just during the COVID-19, pandemic. That's during so many seasons of our life. So that's a deep, thought concept. You're right. God's will is a minute by minute thing. That's why these moments where we don't have things we have to do all the time, we're a little bit more free. There are times to sit and just be, and realize that you have the breath in your lungs for a reason, and God's doing something now to probably prepare you for something later.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
I think this is a great, final discussion to all of the stuff we've been talking about, because it really brings everything in. In 10 years, am I going to look back and say, you know what? I was a youth pastor at the time, student ministries pastor or whatever, and I couldn't figure out what to do, and so I just kind of didn't do a whole lot and, kind of scraped by. I sent memes to some kids. I spent some time with my family, but I spent a lot more time on video games. Or am I going to say, I dug my heels in. I got connected with Joe and Alex, and we did these videos. We tried to encourage some discussion, some thought for our students. I went out of my way to go and serve my wife and my kids, and I made the best of it, and I tried my best to grow from it. Because one of those stories sounds a lot more interesting to me than the other.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody's gonna remember your accomplishments in video games, your accomplishments in whatever else. They're your kids are gonna remember these next 10 years probably more than we will, because it's so foundation building for them. So it's like, what are you doing to invest? And you guys are gonna remember it also. What are you guys doing to invest in yourselves in this time? And I think Giannis Antetokounmpo is a really, really good example, because you have a guy who, in all sense and purposes, made it. He got drafted in the first round of the NBA. He was playing, he was already one of the best, if not the best players on his young team, and he didn't just stop there. He worked hard. I mean, he even grew like 2 inches since his rookie year, like in height, not just like body mass. You know, he's added elements to his game and made himself the best of the best. I think that's a great example.
Well, how about let's close with this? I kind of push you guys. So each one of us, can we just say one thing, one like goal that we want to accomplish during this time? To look back and say, okay, maybe we did a lot of things, but what's one thing you guys really want to look back and say?
Like a short-term goal, like in the next like 60 days.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's good. So for me, I'm taking advantage of this to actually go back. I used to take Greek and Hebrew and did it. I have my own translation of the Book of James, and so
Heretic.
And so I love it. And I've been out of practice since I started in youth ministry full time. And so I am a big giant nerd and brought my 2 grammar books that are like this big home, and I'm like, my goal is to knock those suckers out and get translating again.
That's awesome.
Nerd.
I want to learn Klingon. I want to learn Klingon from Star Trek.
Okay.
No, I don't know. What do you want to do? Come back.
Yeah, I mean, one big thing. We're actually planning on tonight, Jordy and I, my wife, of just taking a digital Sabbath. So 24 hours of just, no Apple Watch, no phone, no computers, no TV. I don't even know what life's going to be like with all those things because they just are so consuming.
Peaceful,
yeah. I think a little bit anxiety-inducing too. It's like, what do we do, But that's one big thing for me. I did a teaching on Sabbath, and it's something that it's this ancient practice, right? And none of us really, even as Christians, it's so foundational. Jesus said the Sabbath wasn't made, or we weren't made for the Sabbath. The Sabbath was actually made for us, for man. So we're going to just jump in, and that's going to be a huge challenge. But man, if we can begin to just do that, the next few weeks, I think it's going to change, our entire lives. And it's going to look back and be like, oh, we took this opportunity to grow in that way. We drew near to God, in a really practical, difficult, but practical way.
Yeah, I think for me, thanks for asking me, is I think one of the things I really want to do is I want to read more. I love to read. I used to spend a lot of time reading, and I want to become more well-read, more well-rounded in reading. What? And so I want to, not only read the Bible and commentaries and different things like that, but I want to read some of the classics that I missed out on that I've just not gotten to, and just entertain myself that way. So more reading, less movie watching. That's my goal over these next 60 days.
So what is your goal? At least find one thing the next 30, 60 days that you're going to accomplish. You're going to be able to look back on, this period of time and be like, oh, I accomplished this.
Yeah.
So that's a wrap.
Hey, your love is holding on.